All right, how many people have their mobile devices on them right now? And how many of them are on? And how many of you are good enough that you can text while it's under the table? You can own it. So the first thing I want to say is that we have a deal that this room is now like a little safe container, so you guys can say things that isn't going to leave, right?
Yeah.
Okay?
Absolutely.
Because what I want to talk about is I want to talk about ways to make sure that you're safe online. And my experience is that you guys are at just the perfect age to believe you know more than everyone else does. And so what this means is that it's putting you at risk. So, how many people have accounts on, let's start with Instagram? Okay, if we do questions, we should do it one at a time. So, what's your question?
What if you have one, but you haven't used it in over like 5 months?
Okay, well, we can come back to that. How many people are using WhatsApp?
What?
You don't know that one yet? Okay. Ask.fm?
Oh my god, it's terrible. I had it.
Okay, so then let me ask a different question. How many of you have computers at home? Of your own?
Just a few.
Okay, and how many of you then can use it in your room without anyone watching? Okay. And then see, now the real $64,000 question, do you have a time after which you're not supposed to use your devices? Or can you use them as late as you want, 2 in the morning, wake up and go online for an hour? So how many people can use it whenever they want?
It's
Like phones and computers.
Okay, so I will tell you, as an adult, that nothing good goes online after about midnight. Okay? And one of the reasons that all of this is a real problem is because I think you guys have been sold a bill of goods. You've been sold a lie by organizations like Snapchat. How many people use Snapchat? I know you guys all do just about. Use have, receive Snapchats. Okay, so you use it. Okay, so how do they position that? They say that nothing sticks around, right? You hold your finger on the screen, you see it for 10 seconds, poof, it's gone. Now, it turns out that's not true. And so one of the big things I want you to think about as we sort of talk about this afternoon is that nothing is ever really deleted on the internet. To the point where, how many people are on Twitter? Okay, so no one's on Twitter yet. You guys will. Your parents are probably on Twitter, right? Twitter literally sends an archive of every message that goes on their system to the Library of Congress. So it's out there as research data for anyone who wants to go and poke around. Yeah.
Isn't the same also true for Facebook? Because I had a friend who was at a party and posted some stupid picture on Facebook, and then it like ruined her life. She had to delete the account, but it was still there. Like it came back. And
yeah. Well,
she couldn't get rid of it.
Right. And so that's a great example. So we're going to talk about Facebook as a whole separate topic. But one of the things Facebook does is when you delete your account on Facebook, what they do is they like put it on hold, and everything still sits there. So if your friends are connected to you and you delete your account, they can still go look at the photos. Right? So again, this whole idea of nothing's ever really deleted, to me is really scary, because what makes that scary is they keep telling us, oh, there's delete functions, you can get rid of this picture, you can Snapchat someone, and there's no worries. But when you actually start reading the newspaper and stuff, you'll see there's all sorts of harrowing cases. For example, there was a case about a year ago of a girl and boy in high school. They were in a relationship, and she sent him a, shall we say, inappropriate photo. And he saved it, even though he told her he deleted it. Then they broke up, and there was some hostility. He started going out with another girl. He sent that other girl the picture. She posted it, and she and the boy both went to jail. So I'm not going to ask you how many of you have ever done any sort of sexting, because I don't want to know, actually. But I will tell you that's the kind of thing that seems like it's not a big deal. But again, there are legal implications. If you post a picture, or if you share with a friend or your friends a picture, even on Snapchat, of you in a sufficiently provocative pose, then that actually is child pornography. And there are cases of kids that have posted pictures of themselves and then gone to jail. And then there are always the classic cases of people that are just stupid, where they will go, there was one guy, he posted a picture of him stealing gas from a police car. And so then the police posted it on their website and said, who is this guy? And they found him and arrested him. Like, really? I mean, Obviously, the guy was a couple of bottles shy of a six-pack to start with, but then to post it. But that kind of stuff happens all the time because I think you guys believe that your little world of the internet is all that there is. So, for example, when you post something on Facebook, weird people in the middle of New York City are looking at your posts. Yeah. Well, I mean, as a guy, it's not as much of a big deal, but I guarantee every girl in this room needs to be thinking about this. There are people that you don't know that are paying attention to what you're doing. And so one of the first things to do is to look at your privacy settings. And what does Facebook do? They keep changing it. So Facebook keeps changing and then resetting your privacy settings. So one of the things I highly recommend that you do is every 6 months go in and make sure everything's set the way you think. How many of you have friends of friends that you've then friended?
Well, like it's so complicated.
But you understood me.
Yeah, I understand it.
Okay, so it's not
But
that
I know I did.
Okay, so here's the thing. If you don't know who these people are, they're not your friends.
Wait, what?
That's
Friends
easy,
of friends who
right?
you friended.
So one of the things I do with my theoretical children is two of them are on Facebook, and we sit down and I ask them who every single person is. My rule of thumb is if this is not someone I would invite into my home, I don't want to be friends with them. So, how many of you have experienced either firsthand, and I have heard some really amazing firsthand stories, or secondhand watched any online bullying? Okay? I would be amazed if it's that small a number, because it's incredibly pervasive, and it's just things like, just snarky comments and sarcasm. Right, but I mean, and so what happens when it's against one of your friends, or if it's against you?
It's online gaming.
Okay, so online gaming, there's some trash talking.
Yeah.
But that can, when suddenly everyone else in the group is ganging up on you, that trash talking starts to become really depressive. You know?
You've always just turn your computer off.
Okay, but there's a lot of people that can't do that and understand, turn the computer off, but now it's 2 in the morning and you can't sleep, so you turned your computer on. Half the people in this room can go on their computer whenever they want.
Block them.
Right? Okay.
Keep them.
Can you block them in all the services?
Well, then they shoot you.
In some of them.
Well, and so, in the game, that's not a horrible thing, but now what happens if they say, I'm bringing this into the real world? Right? So I'm in an online community on Facebook where there's this big fight going on, and someone came on today and said, look, apparently people are saying, we know where this one guy lives and we're sending him threatening messages, we're going to go show up. And it's like, you've really crossed a big line here. Because everything that happens online is through and between actual people. And actual people have actual feelings, and they can get sufficiently upset that they can actually do things in the real world. And so hold your thoughts. So one of the things, how many people post selfies? Right, okay? I don't get the whole concept, but that's okay because I'm not a kid, I'm old. So here's what people do with their selfies. People will often take pictures not realizing that it's really easy to figure out where you are. So there's 2 problems with that. The first one is that your camera, if you're using your smartphone, generally, right, we're using our phones to take these pictures, automatically your phone logs your exact location. And this gets to be a problem if you're sitting at home on your couch taking a selfie and then posting it. So now there's ways people can actually figure out on a map, oh, that's where you live. But even if you turn that off, another issue is there's, Google Street View. You guys ever looked at it?
Yeah.
They have driven around every single street in every city and taken tons and tons of photos and woven them all together into this huge database. So if you were standing in front of a green house with a bush just to the left of the door and it says 1483, with just a little bit of enthusiasm, I can go and look at every 1483 house in Boulder and figure out where you live. Right? Street view means that it's a lot harder to have privacy. So I know you guys are dying to ask questions and probably correct me. So go.
All right. I just think that anyone crazy enough to go over to someone's house and do something because of an online fight is they're gonna do something whether or not they have an online fight because they're just crazy.
Okay, but if they're crazy, do they have to be crazy to you?
No, but it's unavoidable that there are crazy people out there.
Yeah, but it's certainly avoidable. It's avoidable because you can step out of the situation.
Oh yeah, and that's what I said before. But like,
So if you're online and you're going back and forth with someone and they just keep escalating more and more, and now they're like threatening to come over and kill your mom or something, are you just going to say, oh, whatever, they can't avoid crazy people, don't worry about it, here's my address, come on over, let's bring it? Or are you going to say...
I'm not saying address, I'm saying just like, they're out there, you know?
Yeah.
So avoid them, but like...
Right, and so what I'm suggesting is here are some ways to avoid this sort of thing happening. Okay? So, yeah.
I know so it's a lot more gaming, but there's a lot of people out there claiming that they're hackers and that they can trace your IP address back and do all this stuff to you and basically shut down like everything and access to your files and stuff like that. What is the actual percentage of people that are just whooping on that and an actor can actually do that?
Go.
It's really low.
Yeah.
Right.
If you can do that, they're not going to talk to you about it.
Right.
That's basically admitting.
Plus, if you can do that, you're really not going to spend your time shutting down other people's files because you can like.
No, if you can do that, they're not going to
spend
do
your
that.
time on that.
Yeah, no.
It's probably not.
No, yeah. If they tell you that, they can't do it. It's the ones who you piss them off and they're just quiet and then they do it. But
Right.
it's not going to tell you, oh yeah, I'm going to do that. Because if he does it to you, then you can. Yeah, you turn like basically like criminal.
Right, so again, that's alarming because it's the people that are lurking, the people that don't respond in the forum, that aren't in the middle of some big multiplayer shooter, that the people that aren't doing Instagram, whatever, they're the ones that are like taking offense and they're going to just quietly show up or quietly suddenly your computer's not working, right? So again, you know, this is the Benjamin Franklin, right? Ounce of prevention, pound of cure, all that sort of stuff. Learning where the dangers are and learning how to be smart about them, I think is exactly the sort of goal of what we're talking about here. And again, you know, when I gave this talk, one of the last few years, I'm not going to say which one of the people in the class actually came out and said that he had actually come to this school because he had been in a different high school and he had been involved as the recipient of such an aggressive bullying campaign from other students that he wanted to kill himself. And that he actually pulled out of school and like was with a therapist and worked with the cops and everything. And finally they just came to a different school entirely. And that's why he was here. And it was just like, wow, you know, but this stuff really happens. And it's very easy for you to say, well, not me. I'm not worried about that. I'm tough. I can handle this. But it gets really insidious. And it gets really hard for you to be the one person that says, no, that's too much. Because what if they turn on you? Right? Have any of you ever experienced any of this sort of stuff in the playground or online or anything? Yeah, you know.
Major, so they're called flamers.
Yeah, you know, and in the gaming communities, there's this sort of trash talk. It's just like, you know, playing basketball. You're just expecting the other people to say, that's your best shot. Come on, you're like a baby. You know, but it gets a whole lot more intimate when you're sitting there in bed looking at your phone and these messages are coming in or text messages are coming in that people are masking their ID and you don't know who it is. And I know people at this school where parents have gone to the cops because they've been getting anonymous messages from other people in their class that are really mean and really mean-spirited. And when it happens to you, it's really scary. When it happens to someone else, you're like, just ignore it. But it's really not that easy. And you know, the thing is that when you look at all of this stuff, to me, it's just good judgment. It's just like, who are you friending? Because the people that you're friending, you're now giving them access to more information about you. So does anyone know what Foursquare is? So Foursquare, Facebook is a similar thing where you can check in when you go places. That's a huge amount of information to give people, right? Especially if you have patterns. So like if you were to check in here every day when you came to Shining Mountain, you're now telling people, hey, here's who I am and here's where I am most of the day. So if you did get one of these whack jobs and they did decide they really wanted to come and confront you, now they know where to find you. Now you're not just some anonymous, you know, data bit out there in the world. You're in Boulder, Colorado, at Shining Mountain. It's probably from 8:30 a.m. to 3 p.m. So I can just show up at 3 p.m. and wait in the parking lot. Yeah.
Do you suggest having, honestly, like no social media presence whatsoever?
No. And in fact, I was thinking about asking what you guys thought I was going to say as a way to start, because my guess is you guys would all think that that was what I would say. So I like this stuff. I think it's really fun. I like Facebook, Foursquare, Instagram, Pinterest, all this stuff. I mean, it's fun. It's really interesting, and it's cool to keep up with my friends and family. But within certain constraints. So when I'm using a service that identifies where I am, the only people I share that with are people that I know and would invite into my home. And so again, go through your list of Facebook friends and ask yourself, who are these people? How well do I know them? Are these people that I'm friends with because we met 3 years ago at summer camp? In which case, why are we still friends? I don't really care that much about them. Let it go. Are these people that I'm friends with, but when I see them show up, I don't like what they say? Or they're mean, or they're snarky? Or what I've seen is a lot of kids in high school think that it's really cool to use every obscenity in every sentence. And that's really cool for like 5 minutes. And then it gets really old. It's like, this is all you do? You just like have these horrible streams and you say mean, horrible things about people, and you take pictures of people and then post really mean-spirited things. My life, I want my life to be better, not worse. Right? So, one of the things you can do is you can just unfriend people. And that's what I would do. But if you're worried that unfriending them will then make them mad at you, which is, see, now we're back to that whole bullying thing, then on Facebook at least you can unfollow someone and still be friends with them. So they have no idea that you're not seeing their stuff. Realize you're not the victim waiting to happen. You really have a lot more control over this if you want to take it. And, Ask.fm, it looked, about a third of you guys all know what it is, right? It's a site where people can anonymously post questions to you. And on the one hand, it's like, oh, that's kind of cool. So I've seen it where it's like, you're really cute. Do you work out? Things like that. And it's like, okay, kind of lame flirting, but not horrible. But then it's really easy to be mean-spirited. And every anonymous site that I'm aware of, and there's stuff for adults, there are sites where people rate dates. Now, do you think that's going to be a positive thing, or do you think everyone's going to be horrible to each other? Generally, people are really horrible to each other, right? So, in a situation like that, I don't think you should be playing the game. I look at Ask.fm, and it's just like, if people aren't being nice, then I'm out. Life is too short. There's too many other fun things to do. So, again, how many of you have been in a situation or, on a site like that and just seen things that just made you feel uncomfortable or were just mean? Yeah?
I was on my friend's Ask.fm, and my friend and I were looking at it, and there's this one, I'm sorry, my language is getting bad, but like, one of them was like, you're such a fat whore, go kill yourself and everything, and I'm just like, it's not okay.
Yeah, so what was the response?
She's like, haha, thanks.
See, that's the kind of stuff where, you suddenly feel kind of powerless. It's like, well, I can't report you, and because I don't know who I'd report you to, and if you call the cops, they're going to say there's no actual physical activity, so it's not that big a deal, but it can really make you feel that tall. And it's like, well, who said that? And now you're looking at everyone, and now your friends become suspicious, because what if they were just being mean? And again, I think if you looked at those sort of comments and what time of day they were posted, the later it gets, the meaner people get, right? Because you're sitting at home on a Saturday night, and then you suddenly hear that there's a party and you weren't invited. Well, everyone who went actually must be horrible. They must just be the biggest jerks going. So it's totally fine for you to just go after them. And what happens is, instead of us having this warm, fuzzy Waldorf community where we're all holding hands and singing, it becomes, right? Instead, it becomes this community where everyone's suspicious of each other. And personally, that was kind of a little piece of my high school experience, but it wasn't the part I liked. Right? So what about Tumblr? How many people are on Tumblr and post stuff? No? 9th grade. I'll give you another year or two. You guys will be more savvy to that.
I've had one. It's
You
terrible.
have one?
I hate it.
Yeah, so again, this is this whole idea of, the fancy word for this is curating, right? This is how people justify this, but it's really, I see something I like, I'm going to repost it. And you think, well, that's pretty innocuous, but what if now you post pictures of super skinny guys, and then underneath it you say, John will never be like this. And that's just your constant stream, right? And it's just like, if I was John, I don't think I'd be feeling really good about that. There's the whole intention, and then there's how you guys deal with that. So again, with stuff like even texting your friends, one of the things that I think that my kids sort of came to this sort of revelation about is that none of those get deleted either, right? So, you know, if you're texting people, you don't know what's on the other end. You don't know whether I'm sitting there with 4 of my friends and like, what a dork, look at this. And you think the 2 of us are having a private conversation. Have you ever been with friends and they're showing you communication that someone else was having with them, right? And that person didn't know that they were sharing it, right? So how would you feel about if you were sharing something intimate? You know, my parents are fighting again. I think they're getting a divorce. I'm really scared. What a dork. Look at this idiot. You know, that's kind of a betrayal of trust, right? So, you know, my whole thing is just, you know, remember that, number 1, nothing is ever deleted. And I can't emphasize that enough because you guys are even skeptical. I can just see it. You're like, yeah, come on. If you push the delete button, things are deleted. Nothing's ever deleted. You can undelete things, especially on social media. You know, and this is such a great world to worry about the golden rule, right? How are you treating people and what are you willing to tolerate towards people and how they treat you? And, you know, if you guys aren't willing to put up with it, then it's not going to happen as much. Yeah?
I had a question. So do you think if someone were to say, you know, like something mean to you, do you think the best way to kind of, would you like shake it off and just be like, well, I don't really know them, so, or would you say like, oh, like, what would you do?
Well, let me turn that around since I am most clearly not 16 or 15. So, situation like that, there you are, you post a picture on Instagram, someone posts something really mean. It's like, God, you're so lame, you're ugly, that's why you don't take selfies, whatever. Something really mean, how would you guys react? And we'll do the guys first, because they'll react differently. So how would you
Well,
react?
I ignore it if it's just like lost. If it's like one person doing it every time I post something, if they're always doing it, I like try to block them, just block them from happening.
Okay, so you don't confront them, you just try to use the
Why
system.
bother? It just pisses them off.
Okay.
Yeah.
Howie, how would you do it?
I'd probably like say something sarcastic and turn it into a joke.
Okay, so you'd confront them, but you'd try to use humor.
Yeah.
And if it didn't work, would you get hostile? So you wouldn't, okay.
Well, on Instagram you can block users. I mean, like, I know that's probably not the most safe thing. I mean, you can't delete anything, but you can like block users and like report inappropriate stuff.
Mhm.
I don't know.
Which they might or might not respond to. I've never seen them do anything. So, yeah.
I feel like it depends on whether you know the person. If I didn't know them, I'd probably just ignore it because they don't know me. So
And if you did know them?
I don't know.
Or what if it was someone where it seems like they must know you, but you don't know who they are? Because that's probably the most likely scenario.
That would just be super creepy.
Right. And so what would you do?
I have no idea.
Would you just say, drop?
Yeah.
And you're like, Mom, my phone broke.
I know that there's a lot of different scenarios that can happen, and I think I do what Aaron does. But there's like also just like the creepy people who like want to become more in touch with you, who are like, hey, text me sometime, and it's like, no, like,
Don't give me your phone number over.
Right.
yeah, just don't give phone numbers out.
Right. Well, and so they're the perfect example of, now that photo you posted, does it still have the location information on it from your phone?
Yeah.
Are you posting it from an obvious visible landmark where they can say, gosh, you're always at Wonderland Park. So maybe if I hang out at Wonderland Park, I can see you. Right? And it's always at 3:30, right? Because while I'm walking home, I'm taking selfies. You know?
Every day.
I told you, I don't get the whole selfie thing.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so I have a question. I have like a really like super private Instagram account. Like I only have like 30 followers or like 30 following, and it's like private, like in a private setting. You know?
Okay, so it's not the private
you have
setting,
to
it's the
request a
private
follower.
setting.
It's like where
So
you
it's
hit
more-
like private, so it's
Yeah.
well, like the thing that really freaks me out is like you said, like the creepy guy in New York who can still watch your every move and it's not like still. Because like the little private setting, does that even like really do anything for like hackers and stuff?
It's pretty hard to break into that, but to me, the issue is that this is, let me sort of go sideways. Do you know how you measure the strength of a chain? Is the strength of the weakest link, right? So you're relying on 30 people's discretion and privacy So when you post something on that Instagram account, you're assuming every single person will honor your desire for privacy. And yet, probably you know some of them better than others. And there are probably some where you're like, well, Susan's sister is probably okay, right? So to me, that's the issue, is that unless I know every single person and trust all of them completely, then I have to make the assumption that someone's not going to honor my desire for privacy. And I will tell you, I don't think there really is much privacy. So when I talk to companies and they say, well, how do we keep our data secure on the internet? The answer is easy, don't put it there. Right? Companies that have millions and millions of dollars and really top-notch people to make sure nothing ever gets broken into, get broken into and have huge problems. You know, so you're trusting a lot of systems along the way. You're trusting the privacy of Instagram itself, and you're trusting every single person that is in that circle. And I would suggest to you that you look at it maybe in a jaded and cynical way and say, who's really trustworthy here? And maybe the answer is that you assume a certain level of privacy and don't go beyond that. You know, I mean, I will tell you, gosh, even back in the old days with MySpace and everything, you know, since I write about this stuff, people friend me all the time, and it was really bizarre to get like friend requests from 15-year-old girls that have taken selfies before. It was called a selfie, and they would be like in their underwear taking a picture of themselves in the bathroom mirror. And I'd be looking at this and it's like, can you tell me your mom's email address? Because she needs to know you're doing this. Because I'm just some strange random guy on the internet. You don't know who I am. And you're sending me this request that you want to be friends with me. Talk about an open invitation. You know, what's the chance? How many creepy people are out there? Fairly small, but it only takes one to really, really have a really bad situation arise. You know what I mean? So again, if you're posting stuff in that private group, you know, and this is another sort of rule of thumb, if you're posting stuff that you think is private, that you would not want to have show up in the newsletter for the school, or show up on someone's homepage, or show up in a big sharing context, then you probably shouldn't be posting it. So in the old days, we used to call this the New York Times syndrome. If you're putting something online that you wouldn't want published in the New York Times, you shouldn't put it online. Because you're trusting a lot of people that you don't really know. And we have such a track record of stuff that's supposed to be secure being broken into. You know, it's just a matter of time people break into everything. And it's not like two guys in the basement of their mom's house. These are organized bands of criminals in like Eastern Europe and China. China actually funds hackers to break into systems. So these are professionals that can go and say, I need $50,000 worth of computing gear to be able to do this, and they'll go and buy it. You know, or it's the mob in Eastern Europe saying, we need to break into these banks to cause trouble so we can lower the stock market so we could buy stock and make $50 million over the weekend. I mean, it's big organized stuff.
I'm very confused. Are you saying that the Asian government is paying people to hack into who's that important? Like the United States?
Right, so the Chinese government has a group that is funded as part of their military to be part of their first attack group. And it is cyber stuff. You can have cyber warfare. We do the same thing in this country. We have a whole group that's funded by the Department of Defense that's trying to both protect our stuff. Because you imagine some bad guys, right? So you have these terrorists, right? Instead of flying a plane into a building, they say, let's just take down the power grid. That's all we need to do, right? So you take down the power grid and everything stops. And that's a huge disaster for us, and it could be just like 4 people. How is your arm just need venting?
I have a question.
You have a pig too.
Does it like Google or something, like they like hire people to try and hack their database, and if they do, they give them like a really good job to like help them?
He just gave you the answer, dude. Why are you so mean to him?
Because you interrupted me.
Like, you don't. No idea.
I'm
Okay.
confused. Say that louder.
Okay, good. So companies like Google will actually have competitions and say, for us to be able to really believe we have secured our database, we want people to try to break in. And if you can still break in after we put all this effort into it, then we'll give you a prize. And so you get all these people that are, this is not going to be the Romanian mob hacker team. These are going to be individuals that are pretty savvy, and they're trying to break in because they might get a $5,000 prize or something. And the idea is, if you guys who are really trying hard can't break in, then we're probably pretty safe. But, you know, again, systems are only so safe. One of the classic ways to break in is to what's called social engineering. You know what this is, right? So I call up someone who works at a company and say, hi, I'm from the IT department, we're resetting all the passwords because someone broke in. Can you confirm what your password is right now so I can set it for you as something new? Oh, okay, well my password is 4 dogs. Okay, thank you, boom, and I'm in. Right? So the easier version of that is called phishing, P-H-I-S-H-I-N-G. And you'll see this, you guys probably have already seen these. How many people have email addresses? Okay, do you ever get email from like Bank of America, you need to reset your password? Things like that. So those are phishing attempts, and the way those work is that they are assuming that one person out of a million is going to be stupid enough to click on it and say, oh, it looks like the Bank of America page. I'm going to type in my account, I'm going to type in my password and submit. And then it says, everything's fine, thank you. Meanwhile, your password has now been emailed to some bad guy who within 5 minutes logs into your account and changes your password. And then they have access to your account and you don't. So what are they going to do? We'll transfer all the money to our account. Happens all the time, you know, and again, it's because people play on your expectations of trust, right? Sorry?
It's like the Nigerian prince wants, like the Nigerian prince wants this.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta figure in Nigeria there must be so many palaces because there's so many princes.
Yeah. One of my dad's friends from work actually went through that whole thing.
Yeah.
Actually met the guy at the airport, and then we got there, he's like, oh yeah, friend, bring the money. Like some guy like flew all the way over there to like, oh yeah, here, you know, give me 5,000, I'll give you 10,000.
Yeah, you know what he's talking about, right? This is a classic scam. This is also called a 409 scam. There's a couple of names for it, but basically you get an email from someone saying you've been a beneficiary in the will, or you were named in some government thing, or there's a lawsuit and you're one of the people that's the beneficiary, and if you can send us a couple of $100 and confirm your identity, we have $5 million we're going to send to you. There's a million variations on this, and they're all scams, right? And the line that I know Lawrence will know is there's no such thing as a free lunch, right? If something sounds better than it is, it probably isn't legit. And the internet is full of this because I can send an email to 5 million people as easily as I can send it to 10. Right? So coming all the way back, one of the things that I think you guys are going to live through that we have not really experienced is mobile, right? For us, computers have all been fixed location things. But now in the last couple of years, everything has become mobile, and that makes things really interesting. So, for example, there's a lot of companies. I have a friend here in town, he's a manager for a development team at Apple. He lives here. No one in his team actually lives in Boulder. And he just sits over at Amante and works, and he's managing a team of developers because location has become less important. At the same time, do any of you have a 5S, an iPhone 5, right? With a little thumb scanner, right? That's just the beginning. There's a lot more biometric stuff coming, and here's what you should think about. What if you scan your thumbprint, and it stores it in your phone, and then someone hacks into your phone and steals your thumbprint? And now, you then, 6 months from now, say, well, now I'm going to get into my college application, and they use thumb scans to make sure I'm the right person. But someone now has your thumb, right? So there's all layers of stuff that's going to be coming down the road that makes this a little scary, but really kind of cool too. I love all this stuff. I mean, I have a biometric sensor on my wrist that I wear, and I have a 5S and I have my thumb scanned on. But, the whole idea is be aware of the implications of all of these things, and I'm inherently skeptical, and I would encourage you to be more skeptical too. So when you see that delete button and you push it and that seems to have gone away, maybe it didn't. When someone's sending you stuff on Snapchat and you're like, oh, it doesn't matter, it might look inappropriate, but it doesn't matter because, hey, in 10 seconds it's gone. What if it's not? My daughter tells me that she's gotten random people have sent her Snapchats that are highly inappropriate content and she just blocks them. But what if that's not enough? What if for some reason there's someone who just really wants to harass her? And what if it's not some random person and they just found photos and it's actually one of her friends who's not really so much of a friend after all? So So generally when I give this talk, I end and everyone's a little sober. It's like, oh my gosh, I need to go look at this stuff. So that's good, because I will suggest that, particularly at Shining Mountain, us parents are not very plugged in, right? Are your parents more savvy about technology than you?
Yes.
So raise your hand if you think you know more about tech than your parents do.
Well,
Okay, so half
my
of
mom's a software developer.
Okay, or about social media and online. Okay?
Yeah, my dad's.
Right, so, okay, so your dad writes code, it doesn't mean he knows jack about Snapchat.
He fixes computers for a living.
Right, but that doesn't mean he knows anything about this stuff. That's my point, is that just because someone sits in front of a computer writing in C# or something, or taking apart boards and putting in new circuits, doesn't mean they understand the implications of the new privacy settings in Facebook. So my point there is it's up to you guys to figure this out. You can't count on your parents to make sure that you have a safe path. However, if things start to go south, then your parents really are a good ally. And if you're afraid that you're going to go to them and say, hey mom, look, they're being really mean to my friend Sue. And she's like, well then you have to get off everything. Well then find someone else to talk to. Because it would be better for you to talk to someone else like your teacher than to just watch something bad happen. And I will tell you, statistically it's not huge, but there have been cases of like cyberbullying so bad that people commit suicide. And this happens probably every month or two. There, and then there's some cases, just probably in Colorado, but definitely in the US. I mean, there are cases that are so weird. There was this woman, I think in Florida, where these girls were being mean to her daughter, so she logged in and created a fake account as if she was a teenager, and she was so mean to this other girl, the other girl committed suicide.
The mom.
And the mom was doing it pretending to be another teenager. And when this all came out, the cops were like, no, you're going away for a really long time, which did not help her daughter any. But there are definitely some whack jobs out there. But the thing is that anywhere along the way, if you guys can just bring it to the attention of people that have more ability to know how to deal, you don't have to just block it and ignore it. And you definitely shouldn't just trust that it'll go away. And maybe sometimes responding with humor is cool, and that works. Certainly if you're in a multiplayer online like Xbox Live or something, and everyone's trash talking and you're just like, yeah, bring it, whatever, that's just that environment, and that's fine. But if it's someone where every time they're on, they're just going after you, they're not even playing the game, they're just going after you, then it might be time to think about what other options do I have here. Fair? So we have a couple of minutes. More questions? Comments? Do you guys want to correct anything I've said?
We were talking about his mom on Facebook.
Your mom? Okay, how many of you are friends with your parents on Facebook? Okay.
I'm not sure though.
So, my mom is the other day, she's like, oh, how do I block someone on Facebook? And she asked me this, and I'm like, I don't really have a Facebook, but I go on her phone, and she's been looking at it for 3 hours trying to find out how to block this person, and I do it in 5 seconds.
Right, and yet you're the one who's saying that your parents are more tech savvy than you are.
Well, my dad is, not my mom.
Okay, well, then your mom, okay, so
I'm
here's
sure
the same
my mom
thing.
is.
I know, just like.
Right.
Yeah, he's got a knife on him, so now every time she tries to touch something that's not Apple, even in the Apple, she's just like, why is this not working?
Right. Well, but that's, so think about this, is that parents that might not be able to figure out the on-off switch on their camera might not be the best people to talk to about something really technological that's bothering you. So that might be when you need to find someone else. Right? Well, and see, but the Apple Store is an interesting place. Every time I go into the Apple Store, I see teen girls taking selfies and posting them. And what's happening there, and Apple knows this, they don't care, and I'm not sure they could care, but what's happening there is these are kids whose parents probably have all sorts of filters, or you can't go online, or you're not supposed to be online, and when you're home, we have all these nanny filters running and everything, right? And so what do these kids do? They do what any logical kid, any smart kid would do. They find a way to get around the system. And I fundamentally don't have too much of a problem with that, as long as you know how to stay safe when you're doing that. Because sometimes your parents are doing that because things have happened that you have chosen to forget that are going to come up again. Or maybe your parents got a divorce and, you know, there's some new person in the picture and they just have it out and they just really are mean. And your parents are trying to protect you, you know, so two key takeaways. One, nothing's ever deleted. And two, don't put up with people being mean. And don't be mean yourselves. And it's something where you're saying, oh, it's just a joke. You know, and I got two teenagers in the house. I watch this, where it's like, you know, one of them will say something really mean to the other, and the other one will get upset. It's like, oh, come on, I'm just joking. God, you're so sensitive. No, you're mean. You don't need to be mean.